Kevin McCarthy, House Minority Leader of the Republicans in the House, has brought forth their big Commitment to America plan. So interestingly enough, I have been wondering if the Republican Party was going to actually come forward with an actual policy plan. And this is a little bit vague, I'll say, but at least it's some sort of proposal for what they would do if they got into power after the midterms. So we'll take a look at his announcement and then some details about it. Again, like I said, it is pretty vague and the typical stuff you've heard, nothing crazy. But this is their message to voters going into the midterms.
They control Washington. They control the House, the Senate, the White House. They control the committees. They control the agencies. It's their plan. But they have no plan to fix all the problems they created. So you know what? We've created a commitment to America. And we're going to talk about it today. We want an economy that is strong. That means you can fill up your tank. You can buy the groceries. You have enough money left over to go to Disneyland and save for a future. That the paychecks grow, they no longer shrink.
So we'll stop it there. He does move on to talk about crime and some other things, but you can tell number one on the list as far as what they think will be successful as a message in the midterms is economics. And so they're thinking that the aftermath of the pandemic, if they can properly tack that on to Biden as an economic, failing, then that will help them in the midterms. And we talked about how even though, yes, inflation's bad, yes, gas prices have been high for a long time, even though they've gone down a lot over the last few months, that just cannot be pointed back to the Democratic Party or Biden. And I'm happy to do so if it was factual, but it's just not. And we've seen a lot of these same effects of the midterms worldwide. And so that is a great way to understand it. Can't be the leader in one country causing worldwide inflation unless they're doing something absolutely insane. And so that is going to be the message, though, from Republicans. And I think Biden needs to think about, as well as the Democratic Party and all of these races, how they're going to message in a way that's not minimizing people's economic hurt, but is also making it clear that, listen, continuing the policies that we're fighting for right now actually is going to lead to the best outcome over the next 2 years and beyond. And just because we're not there economically yet, even though we've seen really good indicators with job growth and unemployment, as well as the slowing down of inflation and dropping of gas prices, we're not where we want to be yet, but just put the trust in us to continue doing what we're doing because we have at least brought things back in the right direction after a devastating economic time. But to quickly read about this a little bit from the Washington Post, if Republicans do win control of the House, they will have the power to hold hearings and propose and pass legislation, but their ability to make new law will be limited, even if the party also takes the Senate. President Biden can veto bills, and many policies related to crime as well as school curriculum and transgender issues are controlled at the state or local level. Still, the plan served to stake out what the party considers key pitches to win over voters in November. So a little bit of an interesting analysis there, just saying that proposing from the Republican Party's perspective, all of these things are going to do to fight Biden's bad policies is a little bit silly because as long as Biden is there to veto whatever they put forward, they're not really going to be able to materially put things, into law or anything like that. But you got to run some campaign, and this is their message. Here is Biden responding to this Commitment to America plan.
The House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, went to Pennsylvania and unveiled on what he calls a commitment to America. That's a thin series of policy goals with little or no detail that he says Republicans are going to pursue if they regain control of the Congress. In the course of nearly an hour, here's a few of the things we didn't hear. We didn't hear him mention the right to choose. We didn't hear him mention Medicare. We didn't hear him mention Social Security. So let's take a look at what Kevin said today.
Okay.
He said,
and then he goes on to critique it. But I do think flipping it around and saying, listen, you can make all these promises that you want about what the Republican Party is going to do to turn around the economic issues we have. But we understand what you have done historically when you get in power. And we also understand what you have fought for and won on in the case of Roe v. Wade in this present moment. And so let's bring it back to that. Let's, refocus the conversation around the real evidence we have about what it looks like whenever the Republican Party is in power. And here's, just to be completely intellectually honest, here's the little one-pager PDF that they have putting this out. So it's not just me characterizing it. This is their actual document: an economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a future that's built on freedom, and a government that's accountable. So again, those are great things to say, whatever, but you've shown no action in the past or strategy to actually follow through on any of those promises. And the specific policies that we have heard you put forward are not great. The last element I want to look at about this is this somewhat precise focus that has gotten sparked up on the right around the IRS agents being hired under the Inflation Reduction Act. And the idea is scare people that the Biden administration and Democrats are investing a bunch into the IRS to chase after you as an average taxpayer. And we've talked about this before, but we'll break down why that's misleading in a second here after we see Kevin McCarthy talk about it.
This is what we'll do. But on that very first day that we're sworn in, you'll see that it all changes. Because on our very first bill, we're going to repeal 87,000 IRS agents.
So great applause line. We're going to repeal 87,000 IRS agents. Why is that a talking point? Well, in the Inflation Reduction Act, the figure they got was 87,000, the right wing that is. Really, it's actually just refilling roles that are a bunch of people on their way out anyways. The majority of those actually are. And then they are increasing funding to an extent. And so it's a very easy talking point to fall back on to say, oh, the IRS, y'all are all scared of that, right? Well, they're funding it more to come after you. Incredibly misleading, because actually what that's supposed to do is give the IRS the resources that it doesn't have now properly to look into the most powerful, most complex individuals and get the proper taxes back from them. Because it is very logistically challenging to fully audit someone who is a multi-billionaire compared to an average taxpayer. So whenever they don't have the proper resources, they actually end up bothering the you and I's of the world more than the massive billionaires with all the lawyers and all the complex, tax documentations. And so for them to go get the proper money that is hugely outstanding in the United States as far as the wealthy tax dollars that are not being paid, they need the proper resources. And throughout the process of doing that, they would actually get back more money than they're being funded, which is incredible. So according to CBO, the president's proposal, $80 billion increases in IRS funding would yield approximately $200 billion of additional revenue over a decade. So the $80 billion increase in funding would yield $200 billion more in revenue. And again, the idea behind it is to fund them and staff them properly to be able to go after the most wealthy among us, which I am very much in favor of. So there it is, the Commitment to America plan being rolled out by the Republicans, trying to change the conversation from just look at the horrible threat to democracy, look at the horrible actions they've taken on abortion, and reframe it as them having some sort of plan, because they've gotten pretty famous for being a policy-free party, and I guess they're trying to change that at the behest of Kevin McCarthy. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support what I do as well as get access to the full show, all of the stories hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus a weekly bonus show, you can go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley.